Put it that way. It's not. But you know,
Thank you. Is it working?
afternoon, everyone. I'm so happy to see so many of you here in this beautiful room. Wouldn't Bill love this place? So fancy and old school. Warm and inviting, with lots of good food or good food to come, and a fully stocked bar. And so many fine, friendly faces. Lots of friends, and bagpipes, and pipes and drums. Lots of pipes and drums. It's an indescribably great honor to stand before you here and attempt to speak to the singular and remarkable life that was William John Roderick Livingstone's, our Bill. I know he's here now watching. I can feel it. And I can only imagine the pen's score sheet he may have scrawled for our rendition of Journey to Skye. I can say, at least for us, it was heartfelt, with every member of the band and special guests sincerely honored to perform today this brilliant piece of music for you and for Bill. And I might add, with no early bagpipe note D to start resolving the section. And if you could put your phones on mute, that would be really lovely. I must confess, I struggled putting today's words together. Forget my own roiling emotions. I've known Bill for at least 3/4 of my life. In a way, we both grew up together. Well, likely me more than he. And he was one of my closest friends. The question of how to put into a few minutes a lifetime of soaring and beautiful greatness left me at times paralyzed. Had my mom and dad not taken me to Newmarket Highland Games to play the amateur solo piping all those years ago, and had I not heard then the General Motors pipe band under Bill Livingstone's leadership performing in the Grade 1 band contest, the now iconic Mason's Apron medley, my life might have gone a different way. And a tip of the hat to his old comrade, Jerry Quigg, who's here today. He had a big part in constructing that great piece of music, and I know he's hurting a lot today as well. Anyway, I was besotted with the music I heard. It spoke to me profoundly, and I just had to find a way to get a piece of this action, to play this music myself, and introduce myself to Bill. That would help. My dad, also Bill, was a classic piping father, meaning very keen to see his son move up the ranks of solo piping. And this day, unbeknownst to me, he introduced himself to Bill. Under what pretense, I can't imagine. I was to find this out later in the day when, mortified, that he introduced the teenage me to my dad's new best friend, Major Bill Livingstone. Bill was kind and asked me who I was taught by, and was quick to get back to the business at hand, which was likely closer to the beer tent. A side note on my use of the old-fashioned word besotted. It's a Bill word. I draw on it in genuine tribute. You will know Bill was an eloquent master of the English language. After all, he was a successful lawyer and knew his way around a courtroom and most judges, and he was pretty damn good with words. He would drop sometimes unfamiliar or old-fashioned words and phrases effortlessly in conversation, always used in the most genuine and accurate way to best convey a thought or idea. Other Bill words that spring to mind, not all were arcane or unusual, might be lugubrious, mercifully, remarkable, preposterous, quite frankly, and a phrase that will forever invoke Bill for me: to piss in the pickles, should I ever hear it again. And you know, to do such a thing is to make a mess of things, pickles notwithstanding, like omit a line in the latter variations of a good-going tune. The scientists tell us that to swear is a sign of intelligence. Well, Bill was, as you know, very intelligent, and an equal opportunity user of words. Where there is sorrow, there is holy ground, said the fine Irish writer Oscar Wilde. So today, while we celebrate Bill's life, it's fair to say our feelings are peppered with sorrow. We are all here in this fine place together, remembering Bill and the light and the life that was his, and that we all got to be near and around. That light, his charisma, is what Bill brought to the world, our world. So today, of course, we're assembling the light we each have here to honor Bill's. I want to acknowledge how special this gathering is. And while I should not describe Bill as an especially religious person, he was a spiritual person. He felt things deeply: emotions, people, music, life. And you don't need me to tell you that. If you didn't know Bill well, or at all for that matter, you would only have to look to the music, the art he created, and present it to the world, to us, and listen. Bill Livingstone felt the world around him and played it back in the music he made. He was a soulful person. He knew that music was one of the integral elements that enriches life. So to Bill, maybe, when it came to music, sacred might be a better word to use. So back to Oscar. Where there is sorrow, there is holy ground. So I'm putting it to you and to Bill. Today this ground is holy. And I can hear Bill now reproaching me for leaning in so much to God and things holy. But I now think of that famous quote by writer Kurt Vonnegut. Music is to me proof of the existence of God. It is so extraordinarily full of magic. And in tough times of my life, I listen to it. It makes such a difference. Bill and his music surely made a difference, and I know he'd be okay with me including a writer like Kurt Vonnegut in any reference to him. When we come to especially meaningful moments in time, as now, where one is called on to reflect on a person's life and present a sweet distillation of the life of that person, the essence of that person, of Bill Livingstone, as in any reflection, this invariably means we think of how that person shone on you, on me. I think it's both a test and a great blessing to do so, or for those not religious, a gift of sorts. To mine the motherlode of memories we have of our loved ones, and for me today, it's those memories and life experiences that have come to be all thanks to the life of Bill Livingstone. In his thinking, the examining, it's in the thinking, the examining, the recalling that I'm reminded, and as if I needed to be, that in Bill Livingstone's life, he set the direction for my life, and quite likely for many of you here this afternoon. Thank you. And can a more powerful thought be portrayed of a person's life? That is, in living that life, your own life, and the life of many others, was positively effective, changed, impacted, and enriched? I suggest no is the answer. And when I think of Bill, it wasn't the 10 a penny life experience that came along with his association, his friendship. It was adventure. It was life experience on steroids. There seemed to be adventure at every turn, and if not adventure, maybe a splash of drama, but almost always a lot of fun. Bill was the son of a miner, Bill Sr., a Scottish immigrant from Ayrshire. So he was a first-generation Canadian, a generation in Canada that often feels struggle. There were no silver spoons for Bill. He was a self-made man. Though, to think again, it's maybe better to think of that phrase and replace self with Lillian. I had this idea, and I don't think it's absurd, that Bill is getting his hands in my business, that of my encomium today, and maybe that's another Bill word. No tribute to Bill's life could be made without speaking to the epic love story that sprang from Bill and Lillian's devoted time together. Their love blazed through a lifetime, imbued with kindness, respect, commitment, understanding, and appreciation. Their love glowed and offered the world around a sort of primer. They role modeled how a great relationship might best go. Bill and I talked a lot. and often gossiped like two old fishwives, truth be told. And at some point, it almost always came to be said, and he would mention how much he loved her, my bride, as he would often say, and how well Lily cared and looked after him. Today, she grieves deeply. For us to understand this and empathize is important. I can tell you the strength I've seen in Lily in the last few weeks has been extraordinary. And Bill would be proud. He is proud, just as Lily is proud of Bill. Bill Livingstone was, as mentioned, a successful lawyer. His practice, his partnership, centered in the town of Whitby and specialized in family law and latterly medical malpractice. He did his best to ensure justice in every instance, as you would expect any member of the Law Society of Upper Canada. He had a great sense of fair play, and in broader social terms, was of the mind that people who found more in this world should do what might be done to ensure those with less had more. To that end, wherever he could, throughout his life, Bill would act with empathy and kindness. He knew what it was like to be without, to have not much. And so, to help others, where he could, he did. And he is likely cringing somewhere, maybe outside, not far from a bandhall somewhere, in another world, wishing I had not mentioned that. But it's true. But to the bagpipes, the great Highland bagpipe, Bill was one of the super colossal greats. As a lifelong student, mentee, and friend to Bill, you would expect me to say that, but the facts resound. Not only was he a man of first North American to win one of the 2 gold medals in Scotland, and to win is a dream of almost every competitive solo piper, but also the first to win a clasp, a former winner's prize for gold medalists. This prize arguably the equivalent of a world solo piping championship, and such a title currently doesn't exist in the world, you may know. Bill was a steamroller on the competitive platforms of the world. In one of his BBC broadcasts, the late piper, war hero, and piping judge, Lieutenant Colonel David Murray, said that Bill was a redoubtable competitor. And for those of you not up on Bill words, that means he was seriously hard to beat. And boy, was he. He won pretty much all the solo piping prizes the world offered. A bittersweet fact to note is in the instance of the gold clasp contest at the Northern Meeting in Inverness, the World Championship prize as I call it, it was awarded to Bill twice, both times with great compositions, in 1981 with the Prince's Salute and in 1984 with Laird and Vanderpool's Lament. Both historic performances, and I'm really happy and lucky to say that I was in the crowd that day and took in those tunes. But over the years, in this gold clasp contest, Bill received second place 9 times. I recall New Zealand champion piper John Hanning, himself a gold medalist, telling me once that if you were second in a contest where there was a bench of 3, it was quite likely that one of the judges had you first. Bill was simply the bomb when it came to hoovering up solo piping prizes, a testament to his drive, mental acuity, and musical excellence. 11 times winner of the Open Pibroch at Maxville, the North American Championships, 13 times winner of the Former Winners Bar to the Pibroch Society's Gold Medal of Canada. Of course, both gold medals in Scotland, and pretty much all the light music prizes on offer. Amongst all the success was an extremely spectacular time at the 1974 Northern Meeting at Inverness, where he won the march, the Strathspey and reel, the jig, and for a time, he was second in the gold medal. This guy could play. And let's not forget, he corralled a group of Ontario pipers and drummers and led them to another first. 1987 saw them become the first band from outside of Scotland to win the World Pipe Band Championships. And all that was done in about 5 years, and in a style that he had a hand in inventing. As with all great people, it seems to me there are many strands of excellence associated with their greatness. I've talked to a few of Bill's already. In piping, he was a polymath. His gifts and his areas of real influence span the gamut from solo piping to pipe bands to composing to arranging to big studio productions to teaching. He even wrote a book, his excellent autobiography. Today, his students are among the best exponents of piping in the world, and they do what they can to pass on Bill's gift. In his arrangement and composition work, he was top drawer. His tunes will live for as long as there are pipes to play them. He was a true creative. He was an original. Another Bill word is inventive. Bill was drawn to this idea, the notion of inventing new ways and forms and approaches to music, and wore this brand of inventiveness or inventor his whole piping life. He wore it well, and he saw it as a badge of honor. And truth be told, it was this perspective that I found among the most attractive of Bill's musical approaches. Inventive was, and I can tell you, still is, a part of the 78 Fraser Highlanders pipe band he made. It's in our DNA. In thinking a lot about Bill's legacy in piping and weighing and addressing all his fine accomplishments and creative output, I believe it's what he brought to the pipe band movement that will be among the hardiest of his strands of contribution. He turned the music presented by pipe bands on its head. Competitive medley construction as we know it today is not far off the concepts brought together and presented to the world by Bill and his beloved 78 all those years ago. It was Bill Livingstone who channeled the inspiration of Canadian jazz great Don Thompson, and in the piece you just heard, Thompson's Journey to Skye, he brought the pipe band suite to the world, a strange animal, hitherto unknown to the hidebound landscape of the pipe band. At that fine August Wednesday night in Ballymena, Northern Ireland, I recall it so well, over 37 years ago. In the sounding of the bagpipe notes, A, D, G, F, D, and E, Bill's solo to Thompson's masterwork signaled that the pipe band world had changed. Bill Livingstone forever changed the world he lived in. He followed the campground rule. He left the world a better place for his life and his life's work. And for his being a warm and loving human, being a devoted husband, a good and true friend, and for all that and more, someone for whom we will never see the like again. Thank you, Bill.
Just 40 years since I've been amongst this crowd. And the first thing that comes to mind, thank you very much, Michael, for that was absolutely stunning. But the first thing that comes to mind when I stand up to this microphone is, will somebody go next door and shut the friggin' pipe drummers up? You can't trust them. I'm going to try, after that, I'm going to try and sing one of Bill and Lillian's favourite songs. And no, there isn't a chorus. Red rose that's newly sprung in June. My love is like a melody that's sweetly played in tune. And fair art thou, my bonny lass, so deep in love am I, and I will love thee still, my love, till all the seas gang dry, till all the seas gang dry, my dear, and the rocks melt away the sun, and I will love thee still, my dear, till the sands of time have run. But fare thee well, my only love, and fare thee well a while, for I will come again, my love, though it were 10,000 miles. My love is like a red, red rose that's newly sprung in June, and my love is like a melody that's sweetly played in tune. Fair art thou, my only love, so deep in love am I, and I will love thee still, my love, till all the seas can dry. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. Hello? Good afternoon. Can everybody hear me okay? Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. Welcome. It's nice to see so many friendly faces in the audience.
How are you doing?
I'm Sean McKeown. My friends Andrew Hayes, Ian MacDonald, James MacHattie. We're all students of Bill's at one time or another. We were asked to say a few words, so we're each going to say a few things and maybe play a few tunes as well. If ever there was a man you thought might be immortal, it was Bill Livingstone. He was a force, always in motion, always thinking ahead, always ready with a sharp wit or a great story. Bill had this larger-than-life presence, and for us who knew him well, it's hard to imagine a world without him in it. For me, Bill wasn't just an icon in piping, he was a mentor and a friend. I first joined the 78 Frasers briefly in 1998, but it was about 20 years ago that he took me under his wing for lessons. And those lessons at his house were something special. But what made them great were the stories, the banter, and the way Bill had of tying some tune to a larger piece of history or some wild moment from his past. And of course, he always had a good laugh at the ready. After a session, we'd sometimes grab lunch or a pint, and it felt like the lessons never really ended. There was always something to learn from Bill, whether it was about music, life, or just how to tell a good story. As a kid, I watched the 78th at the Ontario Highland Games. With Bill leading the charge, he had charisma, energy, and presence that made you want to pay attention. It wasn't just exciting to listen to the band, it was exciting to watch Bill conduct it. I can still picture him lifting his foot high in the air and directing the band through a slow air. He was a rock star. And the band, well, it was daring. That was the magic of the 78s back then. They were exciting, innovative. They pushed boundaries. Today's pipers and drummers stand on the shoulders of the giants who came before them, and Bill was one of those giants. I rejoined the 78th in Bill's final years as pipe major, but he was still as magnetic as ever. He loved playing great music and being around the band, and well, the band loved being around him. For him, it was never just about competition. It was about sharing the joy of this music with the people around him. After practices, we'd all hover near Bill at the pub, waiting to see where he'd sit, just to be within earshot of his latest tale or bit of banter. He'd order plates of chicken wings for everybody, and suddenly it wasn't just a post-practice hangout. It was a moment, a memory, an afternoon of laughter, camaraderie, and maybe even a touch of awe. When he stepped down as pipe major, I was stunned when he asked me to take over the band. It was an incredible honor, but I'll admit I wasn't sure I was ready. After some reflection and conversations with a few trusted friends standing right here today, I realized it wasn't the right time for me. And Bill understood, no judgment, no pressure, just a quiet reassurance like, you'll get there when you get there, and that was Bill. When we both moved to the Toronto Police Pipe Band, some wondered how Bill Livingstone was going to be a rank-and-file guy, but he didn't miss a beat. He showed up every week, tunes nailed, no ego, just pure love of the music and the people sharing it with him. Of course, some things never changed. He still held court at the pub after practices, and the guys started calling him the master. If you were lucky enough to sit at his table, you were in for a real treat. A couple of years ago, he reached out for something special. He was working on his final installment of the Peter Diaries. He couldn't play his pipes anymore. He asked if I'd record one of his last tunes, one he'd written for his brother Ranald. There were other people he could have asked, but he chose me. I think, in part, it was his way of lifting me up, showing me that he believed in me. And I know that I'm not the only one here today that felt that from Bill at one time or another. And of course, there were the Bill moments, those flashes of brilliance and mischief that only he could pull off. Like our last trip to the Worlds together, we're at the Station Bar in Glasgow, and Closing time rolled around. Naturally, Bill rallied the troops, and off we went marching up the street to the Festival Club, the National Piping Center. When we got to the entrance, the young girl working at the front door stopped Bill and said, "Excuse me, sir, that'll be £5. Bill, with a little laugh under his breath, says to the young lady without missing a beat, "My dear, take a look at those Glenfiddich pictures on the wall. That's me and several of them." Well, she glanced at the wall, then back at Bill, back at the wall, and back at Bill's unmistakable mustache, and said, "Right then, in you go, sir." And just like that, he strolled in like he owned the place. Because in a way, he did. That was Bill. Charm, presence, wit, and that little spark of mischief that made him unforgettable. When Bill passed, Lillian said to me, "He belongs to you guys." I gently pushed back, saying, "No, he's yours first." But she was insistent, and the more I've thought about it, the more I see she was right. Her Bill was one person in private, but to us, he was our Bill. The rock star piper, the storyteller, the leader, the inspiration. And that's why we're all here today. Because each of us carries a little bit of him forward. And maybe, just maybe, that's what immortality really is. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My life has been spent playing against Bill Livingstone. Right from a kid, in pipe bands. My brother had an opportunity to have one glorious season with the 78. I think I was about 13. I was too young according to Jim McGilvery, but a little bit young, but I did learn all of the music because it was there to be learned. So Craig had his one season, and I went on with the Toronto Police. And after, 30 years, Bill finally saw the light and came to the Toronto Police Pipe Band. And it was a beautiful thing, man. He always used man. Again, for me, pipe bands, the 78th were one of the bands that I actually fell in love with pipe bands with. When I grew up in Willowdale, they used to practice, and all the faces that you see on the album, Faces, they would always practice in a parking lot, and a lot of them are here today. Practice in a parking lot right at Beecroft, just a little east of a cemetery. But anyway, we heard the sound, and my brother and I got on our bike, and away down we went to listen. So we were there a few times watching the band play. And again, all the amazing things that the 78 did with Bill and Michael and Bruce, Reed. I did have an opportunity to actually put that music to work with the Live in 87 concerts a few years ago, and I got to see Bill at the helm again, and you could see how all of it worked. And it was, again, one of those things that I always thought it was, and a special time for us all that were there, and I know Bill had a great time as well. And for me, when he did come to the band, I really started to get to know him a lot better there. I began some solo lessons with him, and one of the things I always remember is when I go into the master's house for a lesson, they always have these pictures on the Glenfiddich on the wall, and they're very proud to display them, as Jim McGilvery did as well. I remember that as a kid. They always had these pictures, so I've got a few of my pictures now, and I owe a lot of that to Bill Livingstone. Again, what a friend, coach, mentor, master, and again, a bandmate after a few years, Bill Livingstone.
My name's James MacHattie. I've been away from these parts for some time. It's awfully good to be back here, though. I'm feeling a little unprepared. I didn't have a perfectly put together speech like Sean did. But my experience with Bill is different, of course. I grew up playing and learning pipes in Saskatoon. I had an early piping career in the prairies, and then I had my second piping career was in BC. And then I moved here, and I wanted to learn from Bill as much as I could. You know, when I first started piping, the 1987 Worlds had just been won about 2 months earlier. About 2 months after that I started playing. And I would go to sleep every single night listening to my cassette of the Live in Ireland. So I memorized every single part of it. And because of that, and you know, so many people that I didn't really meet until later were already heroes of mine. But when I moved to Toronto, I don't remember what year that was, 2000 maybe? I asked Bill if I could have some Pibroch lessons from him. And he said, in his storyteller's voice, of course you can. So I was very, very nervous. I took the GO train out, and he picked me up in his car. And you know, this is the first time I'd had a real interaction with Bill. Bill the man, not Bill running the group. And the first thing he said to me was, well, James, I'm extremely angry with you because I joined the Toronto Police. Once he got that over with, though, we had a fun drive over. And my Pibroch experiences, I'm going to use Impreza Morag just as my little motif, my example. I'd achieved some reasonable success already in my open piping career, and I had been studying Pibroch quite extensively through summer schools, but of course with some of the great pipers in the West Coast. And I was very, very used to a very paradigmatic approach to it, a very intellectual approach. And there were certain things I wanted to do with some of my tunes, and I was told, nope, you can't do that. You can't do that yet. Not till you've done great things can you do those things. But not when I went to Bill. He just said, well, yeah, you can do it like that. Or you can do it like this too, or you can do it like that. I do it like this. I would recommend you do it like that. And then so it was liberating for me in my Pibroch playing, and it brought this immense joy that I had never really experienced in my playing yet. I had the foundation. But I remember he would always tell me, he would stop. James, what are you doing? Stop being so intelligent. You're playing like a scholar. You have to let the raw emotion out. Yeah, be smart about it, but just let it out. And I took a little bit of the thought away from it. I just became pure playing for the joy of it. And in Praise Morag, I was so used to it's in threes, 1, 2, 3. And he just said, well, just push through the twos. But I'm not allowed to do that. Oh, yes, you are now. And then suddenly this piece came to life for me, and it served me quite well after that. But that's just one tune out of many. I had the pleasure and privilege of playing with Bill. I had the honor of becoming a friend of Bill's. But he was always an example and a hero. You know, he could have this profound, really deep wit, and then 30 seconds later, this riotously, hopelessly irresponsible humor would come out. And he was just a man like that of paradigms and oxymorons, but what a wonderful guy. I'm just so thankful to have had some time with him. I wish I had more.
Thanks everybody for being here today. My name is Andrew Hayes, and I share a lot of the same experiences as my good friends here with Bill. I grew up in Ontario, in Ottawa, so pretty far away back in the day. And I remember my first CD ever being the Live in Ireland CD. I'm going to drop something here, and I'm going to keep coming back to this. We emulate our heroes. I don't know how many times I listened to that CD. I had Bruce Gandy's solo
off, and I even did the wide arm like Bruce does when he plays. And Michael's set was also incredible. But there was something about the way that Bill just introduced Lord Love's Lament, the way he played, the children, the way he introduced Journey to Skye that we got to play tonight, that was absolutely captivating. I was about 12 years old in 1987, and Thomas Monroe and I were at the Barrie Highland Games. We drove all the way up there from Ottawa, my dad and I. I was playing grade 3. 8:30 in the morning, I was second on, I think, and the bass drone stopped in the second part. So I was done at 8:32. But we sat around to listen to the 78s at the Molson Amphitheatre that night, a couple weeks before the Worlds. And I remember being in the parking lot. Tommy heard the band and we started running. We wanted to get right there to hear and watch. And what we saw was incredible, inspiring. Fast forward a couple years, 1991, 92, I had been taking lessons from Scott McCauley, and he left. He went to Summerside, where he took on the College of Piping. And my father, being the visionary that he was, said, we need to get you somebody closer who's going to be able to help you. He approached Bill at the Loon Mountain Highland Games. Bill had been judging there. And I had been just too nervous to go up and talk to Bill. We'd been around the band. Ian Donaldson was a family friend through the Forgans. So that was as close to Bill as I got, watching Ian and being close to Ian. But my dad had the nerve to walk up and say, Bill, would you think about teaching Andrew? And Bill said, absolutely. So we started making the monthly drives from Ottawa to Whitby. A drive that should take 4.5 hours from my house. My dad typically did it in 3.5. And he would drop me off early as always. And I'd get to spend a little bit of time with Lily. And that time was as precious, if not more precious, than the time I got to spend with Bill. She was an absolutely incredible support for Bill. And as they say, behind every good man is a good woman. Well, I think they came up with that by watching Lily. Those lessons were incredible, absolutely incredible. Both the tunes I won the gold medal with, Old Men of the Shells and Viscount of Dundee, came directly from Bill. And again, trying to emulate your heroes. I tried to play it like him, probably just a shadow or a shade of what he did, but I tried to play it like him. And I'll never forget being in his living room with him waving me through those tunes. I think at some point in time, I hope that I'm teaching people how to play tunes like that, passing on, like Bill does, the stories of John McFadden and that sort of thing, except for I will be passing on the stories of Bill. I think, James, you mentioned that Bill said he was upset at you for joining the Toronto Police Band. I got the same story. He was upset at you, but he was even more upset at me. But how could I turn down these 3 guys who I was playing with? And Bill understood. A couple years later, I was really, really happy to be able to join the Frasers for the last couple of years of Bill's time as pipe major. And the very first practice, I showed up and I got to stand beside him at the very beginning when we played Lord Love's Lament. And I think I had tears streaming down my eyes, just thinking about that. We had a number of really great times through the years. I'll tell a funny story. I probably shouldn't tell this, but we were at a bar in Inverness the day before Inverness when I found something out through Lily that Bill was very embarrassed about going to the bathroom in public. So he held it in as long as he could, and he held it for a really long time, and then he gave in and had to go. And me being as mischievous as he is, watched him go in the bathroom and promptly followed him. And he stood there just staring at me. We were in a stare down. I gave in 5 minutes later and walked out. I don't know where I go from here now. Maybe I'll tell one more funny story. It was Bill's last performance at the Worlds with the 78s when he was leading the band, and it was the medley competition. Actually, I'll back it up. In the morning, we had been marching up to the line, and he looked up at the screen, and it had the 78 Fraser Highlanders, pipe major William Livingstone, no E at the end. And he turned to the steward when he got up there and he said, "Can you make sure you have that fixed for the afternoon?" Completely deadpan. Person said, "Yes, Mr. Livingstone, we'll make sure." We showed up for the afternoon and he said it was about time. We went out and played, and it was probably one of the most enjoyable medleys that I think I played with the band. So emulating heroes. Bill, he was an absolutely incredible model. I try to be like him in terms of the way that I play, and I fail often, but I try. As a professional, he was a lawyer, and I probably followed him into that profession. He was doing medical malpractice. I did medical malpractice at the beginning of my career. He was on the plaintiff side, so suing people, and I was on the doctor's side, and that gave rise to a whole bunch of interesting stories along the way. I have been fortunate to find a wife that is as supportive as Lily is. The one thing I've never emulated, and I think only a few people can say that they have, I never grew his mustache. And I'm thankful for it. It's very patchy and it's gray all over the place. I enjoy playing with words, and Bill certainly did as well. And when I think of the pluckiness and the moxie that he always showed, I think that's a joie de vivre that we all should have. So thank you very much. As we leave here, having celebrated Bill, I would just like to thank Lily as well. She's going to be left, after this is all said and done, a little feeling alone, and we can all be there for Lily, just like Bill was there for us. Thank you.
That was fantastic. Thank you, guys. My name is Brian Pollock, and I'm here to do a reading, partially a reading from Bill's book, Preposterous Tales to Follow, which was published in 2017. I'm going to make a few comments after that. It's really an honor for me to do this, in honor of our great friend, and really we've been friends for almost 60 years. I first met Bill in 1969, and I'll talk a little bit about that later. This is an excerpt from Bill's book. I'm going to read that first, and it's a story that you might be interested in about how Bill and Lil met and how they got on. And it starts out a reading from the book. One Sunday night at the Caruso Club in midsummer 1964, there appeared an incredible girl, long hair to her mid-back, bleached gold by the sun. I later learned she'd been in California at her sister's for a week. Tiny, delicate figure, face to break your heart, and wearing a white with blue polka dots dress, encircling her frame with exquisite care and stopping at a modest knee length. The band had finished a set, Bill's band, and before leaving the stage, I turned to one of my bandmates and I said, "Who is that lady? Who is that girl, actually? Who is that girl? Who is she?" "Oh, that's Lillian Chillick. You want to meet her?" I have to meet her. I must meet her. I have to meet her. I'm going to marry her." And that's a true story. He said that. Anyway, continuing on with the reading. It was only a few days later when we saw each other again. There was a rock show at the Sudbury Arena, a place that sat maybe 350 people, and my bandmate arranged for us to go. Lillian thought it was sort of a group date, and she was really manifestly disappointed to discover this was a real date, involving only 3 or 4 couples, of which Lily and I were to be one. Despite the music of Roy Orbison, the Everly Brothers, and a young guy from Ontario with a couple of hits, the atmosphere was frosty. As the evening turned chilly, I draped my jacket over Lil's shoulders. This simple gesture opened the door. She suddenly saw me as not such a bad fellow, and we were off. She stuck with me, and we conducted the most wonderful romance imaginable. When I graduated with my BA from Laurentian University, I had applied to Osgoode Hall Law School in Toronto and to Berkeley in California for the postgraduate studies in psychology. I was accepted at both, but did nothing about it. I was having too much fun playing with the rock band. Our courtship proceeded apace for the best part of the year. I had taken a year off school, mostly playing in bars and clubs while Lily finished up her training in X-ray. Somewhere along this path, it became obvious that something had to break. I simply had to marry her, and it seemed that she felt the same way. With just about as much forethought, that is to say little or none, I said to Lily, "Why don't we get married and I go to law school?" I got on the phone to the law school, and in no time, Osgoode confirmed my application and acceptance were still good. And so it was. This crazy scheme got underway. My first classes started at the beginning of September, and I came back to Sudbury for our wedding on October 9th, 1965. Following the wedding, it was back to Orford Street, where a repast was laid out typical of my mother Mildred's feasts. This was followed up with one of the famous Kayleys, and then the bride and groom set off to the Sorrento Hotel for the honeymoon. Just one night. The next morning, Cousin Joe drove us to Toronto to our own little basement apartment in someone's home, and the real work began. So ends the excerpt. Lily was the love of Bill's life, and we know he would be very happy to have this story read today. I first met Bill actually in 1969 at a Piper's Society meeting with George Campbell. He and I went to the meeting. It could have been 1970, one of those years. We went there. George knew of Bill, and he really wanted to get Bill in the band. And he knew that Bill would be playing solo that night. So after Bill played, he was over at the bar, and George and I approached him. George did a magnificent job talking to him, encouraging him about the band, and the plot was a success.
And Bill came to the band as a pipe sergeant, and we had some very good years, actually winning the Champion Supreme in '72 in an undefeated season. And that was a thrill. And there were some great luminaries in that band too. Of course, George Campbell was there, Jimmy Agnew, John Kirkwood, and Bill's dad, Bill Livingstone Sr. Oh yeah, somebody by the name of Worrell, Bob Worrell. Anybody know him? Yeah, and also John and Graham Perry and Alec Price. We had some really good guys, good players. I played with Bill for many years. After that, I played with Chris Anderson in his final year at the Toronto Police, or pardon me, City of Toronto. And Bill took over the band in '77, and I played with the band until '79. And I was with another band, Clan McFarland, for a couple of years. And then in 1982, I'll never forget it, Jerry Quigg and Bill were standing outside the beer tent, and they waved me over. And I happened to be outside the beer tent as well. They waved me over and they sang a song for me, My Lag in Love. They did it in two-part harmony, and it was part of the tunes for the 78th Frasers, and I fell in love right away and joined the band in '82. And we had a great one. I stayed there till 1990. Played again, actually, with Bill, starting in the Toronto Police Grade 1 in 2010 for 4 or 5 years. Anyway, I had some great times playing with Bill. And one thing I wanted to mention, I was talking to our former band manager, Tom Fraser, about this recently. One quality that Bill had that made him an exceptional pipe major was that he was a great listener. And he would draw on the skills in the band. Jerry Quigg, Bruce Gandy, Michael Gray, John Walsh, Reed Maxwell, Coffee Maxwell. And he would take their skills and knowledge and experience and sift it through and use their strengths, because he would listen to what they had to say. He wasn't a dictator to say, you're going to do this and this and this. He used the strengths of the players he had in the band, and it really showed. And it was quite a team that was had there. So, and it came up with obviously some great music, innovative medleys, and breaking new ground and all of that. A personal note, there were lots of fun times we had. Bill had an amazing wit, as many have talked about today, and lots of good times in the pubs, and even on the airplane back and forth from Scotland. I've got photos of guys sitting in the airplane playing the pipes, Bear Ewan, for example. And we had some great times, and Bill was always there with a tremendous wit. One short note just to close. Janet and I, of course, knew Bill and Lil right from '69. Our kids knew them as Uncle Bill and Aunt Lil. We spent a lot of great evenings together, and had a few bevies once in a while. And Bill asked me to join his gym a few years ago, and I did, and we had some really good workouts and maybe a couple of beers afterwards, just so we didn't lose too much weight. And maybe some scotch. Anyway, I'm going to miss you, buddy. Thank you, everyone, for listening.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you could please settle down, would you please welcome, all the way from Dartmouth, Nova Scotia, the incredible Mr. Bruce Gandy.
You getting all this one? Oh, trying.
Hello. Will all the drummers in the corner shut up? Took a while, but Bruce finally got through. Would you please welcome Glenna Mackay-Johnson.
Hello, I'm going to be singing Himi na Morven, which is a Gaelic song. It's actually a Gaelic song from Miscovered Mountains. I think everybody here that knew Bill knew how much Bill loved to sing. And we know that also from, you know, the last album that he produced, Northern Man, and he loved to sing. So I think it would be a great tribute to him. I know you probably don't know the Gaelic words for it, but if you can hum along as I sing the song, I think that would be really beautiful for him. So this is for Bill and for Lillian.
Just
We can strip you up there.
Oh, we just walked through the Lex.
Don't be afraid of it. You choose the signal that you actually.
I did like to.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's Alice during
Stop. There's no mic up there anymore. There's no mic up there anymore. Yeah, it's gone. That'll work.
So I will speak to you from this end of the hall. I'm told that the microphone at the front has disappeared, so we will use this one back here. May I take a minute to thank all of you who have given such wonderful spoken and musical tributes this afternoon. To Michael and the 78th Fraser Highlanders, Alistair, Austin, Ian K, Sean, Andrew, James, Glenna, Bobby, and Brian. Thank you. Thank you. You spoke, you sang, and you played from the heart today. Bill would be extremely proud of all of you. To Lil, all of us here today and those listening online cannot begin to thank you enough for making today happen. You knew that we all needed this. We needed to come together, reminisce, and above all, celebrate a truly remarkable man. Thank you for sharing your Bill with us. We share your grief and your loss, and want to be there beside you in the days, months, and years ahead as the healing and the smiles replaced today's tears. To Michael, from all of us, thank you so much for organizing this celebration. It truly has been a day to remember and so extremely fitting. You were a dear friend to Bill, and I know how important he has been in your life. Only a friend could have orchestrated such a beautiful and classy event. In short, this has been absolutely perfect. When I was asked to give a few concluding remarks and propose our toast today to Bill, I was extremely honored, but also unbelievably humbled and intimidated. Any conversation with Bill required me to carry along a dictionary or a thesaurus to be able to truly begin to decipher what the hell he was trying to tell me. But this was all part of his magic. His magic. I know that most of what I'm about to say will be a repetition of what has already been said today and what has been written in the multitude of online tributes. But please bear with me for the next few moments. Bill was truly a legend in piping most definitely. But he was a legend in all aspects of his life. He did nothing in half measures. He was fearless in everything he embraced, whether it was his own music, his band's music, his commitment to physical fitness, and his career as a lawyer. This unbridled passion for life extended to his love for good food, vintage wine, and sophisticated single malts. His taste in music was extremely eclectic. And I just want to deviate a second from my prepared remarks. Sean talked about that mischievous side to Bill, and I'd like to I remembered one wonderful, mischievous moment. Bill and I were playing in the General Motors pipe band, and we decided we were going to go down to Detroit. There was an individual contest, open professional contest, and then a duet thing. It was a duet thing that was happening. Bill said, "Do you want to do it?" I said, "Let's do it." So we put together our medley, and down we went. And I thought we played quite well, and it was great fun preparing for it. Well, when the result came out, we were second, and I believe it was Jake Watson and Nigel Moore won it. And I'm not going to say who the judge was that evening, But we were a bit distraught over this whole thing. But then, of course, at the end, the winning duet had to come on and play, and then they said that the runners-up had to come on and play. So Bill said, "Let's do it." I said, "What'll we play?" And he said, "You went to John Wilson at the same time I went to John Wilson. You know the 6/8 we're going to start off with." The judging was bad. I said, "That's pretty cheeky." He says, "Let's do it." I said, "Let's do it." Now the judge, not mentioning the name, was oblivious to the tune we were playing, but some people in the audience who knew the hands rather were on the head going, "Oh no, these two." And recently we were reminiscing about that evening again, and it was such a great laugh, and it was such a great night. In fact, you know what? It was worth coming second so that we could do that. As a friend, you quickly realized that he had an unwavering moral compass. We've heard that today. With a clear vision of what constituted fairness, what was clearly right and wrong in a very complicated world. He spoke his mind. Oh my God, did he ever speak his mind? And I absolutely adored him for that. He embraced diversity. He was a proud Northerner and a very, very proud Canadian. And above all, he was a very loyal and cherished friend. A raconteur extraordinaire, boundless energy, an engaging and unique charisma that made you want to be part of his musical and social orbit. While we all know there are a multitude of reasons to celebrate Bill Livingstone, which have helped bring so many people together today, I would venture a guess that there is one common denominator. We heard it today, and that is inspiration. His own prowess as a soloist inspired so many of us, myself included, to reach so much further than we ever would have done without his inspiration. And the same can be said of what Live in Ireland and the subsequent musical creativity that the 78s brought to pipe bands throughout the world. We need to question, all of us here today need to question ourselves and ask, what and where would any of us be musically without the presence of Bill Livingstone in our lives? In his autobiography, Preposterous, he shared his own battles with depression. How brave was that? I subsequently told him that his inclusion of that in his autobiography was probably the most significant contribution he could ever make to those of us in the pipe band community. I've had countless friends in piping and drumming open up to me about similar battles they have had with mental health and cite how Bill's openness in his autobiography helped them more than he would ever know. But despite all of his piping and pipe band success, it's the marriage that stands out above everything else. Bill and Lil. Now there's a love story. Role models for so many of us. The love, devotion, and mutual admiration that was so evident throughout their marriage. Bill inspired me in every aspect of my life. My own music, my teaching career, and most importantly, in my own marriage. Before we have our toast to Bill and his memory, I'd like to mention that Lauren Cousin, who is a Glenfiddich ambassador, plays with the 78s, has come up from Miami to be with us here today and play. He's arranged for the drams that we're going to have today. He told me that it's a 12-year-old Glenfiddich with delicate, it's a delicate dram, he says, with hints of, gosh almighty, honey, and also hints of pear, and then he said, something like yourself. And after this winter, Todd Todd says, I think it's more like pear-shaped. So I ask you to all join me and raise your glasses to toast the piping legend, the true force of nature, the friend, the mentor, and the one-of-a-kind inspiration. Gupra, translated from the Gaelic, means forever. Bill Livingstone, Gupra. Thank you.
Before you all depart, I would just like to take a moment to thank all of you. I am Bill's